While America's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal has definitely raised tensions in the region, Israel is also increasingly worried about Iran's military support of Syria. Joining me now from our bureau in Washington, D.C., national security expert and president of IRIS Independent Research, Rebecca Grant, Ph.D. Rebecca, this deal wasn't that great to begin with, so why are Democrats freaking out? What exactly is going to be different now than it was when we had the deal?
Well, let's recall the deal was so bad that President Obama could not send it to the Hill to be ratified as a real treaty. It had to be just a joint plan of action. So we knew from the beginning that it was flawed. I'm astonished, really, to see this much clamor from Capitol Hill. What's going to be different now? Well, some things will not change. For example, our European partners are still in the deal. I believe the IAEA still has inspectors in Iran, so some of that will hold firm. What will change is that we now have, with the Trump administration, a chance to put more sanctions pressure on Iran to get after what's really happened, and that is Iran's very aggressive acceleration of military activity in the Middle East that's happened even more since that deal was made in 2015.
Well, French President Emmanuel Macron says that he predicts that there will be a war started because the Trump administration pulled out of this deal. What are the chances of that actually happening?
I don't think there's a very good chance of that. I think Macron was talking about that as sort of a negotiating leading up to Trump's decision. We heard something similar from Assad in Syria saying, oh, we might have World War III. To me, this is just bombast and rhetoric. But remember, we have a lot of conflict on the ground already. Israel and Iran have been sparring very openly in Syria for at least the last 6 months. We've seen Israeli strikes into Syria on bases where Iran stands shoulder to shoulder with the Syrians. What I see here is we'll have some continued military pressure, but we have to remember that we have forces fighting with our Syrian Defense Force partners in northeastern Syria. The U.S. can't really leave Syria behind as long as Iran can run loose in Syria and continue to create trouble. That's the question to solve.
Well, you mentioned Israel, and Netanyahu went on record saying that the Israeli government has, quote, half a ton of secret Iranian documents proving that Tehran once had a nuclear weapons program. So why is this important?
Well, one thing about Netanyahu's briefing and announcement is it really showed Iran that Israel can reach deep into its most secret archives in Iran. That was quite an intelligence coup. And I think Netanyahu was very much telegraphing to Iran, better watch out. We can reach out and touch you, whether it's with spies or in some other way. But I think what we're going to see going forward is, ideally, and Europe has talked about this too, we want to see some quiet negotiation to perhaps bring Iran back into a tighter deal. What we want is limits on ballistic missile testing, and we want an end to the support for terrorism in the region. This could take some time, but Trump has thrown away the sham deal, and now we have to find a real solution to the problem of Iran's rising military power.
Well, and another deal that's coming soon is the president tweeted that he will be sitting down with the North Korean President Kim Jong-un on June 12th. And I should say dictator. I said president, but it's the first ever meeting between a sitting president and a North Korean leader. So how will this impact our relations with Iran, and what can we expect to come out of this meeting, if anything?
I'm delighted to hear about the June 12th summit in Singapore. And what I like about this at this point is it's a potential win-win for many different nations. It's a potential win for North Korea if Kim Jong-un is willing to trade nuclear weapons for economic development. China gave him all that military might, but they could not give the North prosperity. South Korea can win. China can win by assisting and helping with this and getting rid of that troublesome rogue regime, not getting rid of the regime, but bringing them more into the fold. Russia can win with assisted economic development. So I like the way things are going. We have to be very careful because the North Koreans are known cheaters. But what we see so far is every few days, more goodwill. 3 high-level meetings this week between Kim and President Xi. South Korea and China also met. And then, of course, Pompeo meeting with General Kim, their spy chief in Politico. So it's all on track. And what this means for Iran is hey, there's a path for Iran to denuclearize and become a larger member of the international world order and to have that economic prosperity. Now, that's a long ways away. But if it goes well with North Korea, there's a potential path for Iran, too, someday.
Well, these are all great things, and the president is really making history here. Yet, and now there's a lot of talks of the president, the president should get a Nobel Peace Prize for this. Do you think that he will get it? Do you think that he deserves it for this?
I think he deserves it if the summit goes well. I mean, he'd be the first to say, let's make sure it's a fruitful agreement first. He'll walk away if things aren't going well. But I think he certainly would deserve it. And maybe he can share it with the UN Security Council that's been so helpful in this. Like I said, there's plenty of good to go around if the North Korea deal stays on track.
And one more thing before we go, the DoD just released a list of coalition strikes against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. And now there's word of ISIS trying to pose a threat to the first Iraq election since they took back control from the Islamic State. Do you think that this is something that we should worry about, the rise of ISIS again?
Always. ISIS would love to put more pressure on Iraq, but you're right. The coalition conducted 53 airstrikes this week. It's part of Operation Roundup, which is eliminating the last remnants of ISIS in Syria and in Iraq. So our 70-member coalition there is still very strong and will safeguard those Iraqi elections. I think ISIS is on the ropes. We just have to stamp them out for good.
Well, let's hope that we do that. Rebecca, thanks.